I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory in the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. My name is Linda McFadden. I'm the chair of this panel, and with me today is Kent Seelan. Is it Seelan?
Seelan.
And Neil Harden. Our assessor today is Jonathan Skacek, and our secretary is Kelsey Harrison. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which the revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that applicants or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparison of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I'll confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decision. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are recorded and will be part of the public record. Swear that everyone in.
You swear?
No, sorry.
Could you please state your name?
Jonathan Skacek.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I swear.
Thank you.
His name is Sid.
Yeah. Could you please state your name?
Rocky.
And do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Could you please state your name?
Yeah.
And do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thanks.
I think item number 1 has been withdrawn, so we're to item number 2, which is 1900 Main Street.
Thank you,
Would you like to
Madam Chair.
begin?
Yes. We are looking at roll number 1103-044-1200. This is 1900 Main Street. It is one block south of Lila. We have a 2020 value of $5,201,000. I'm actually making a recommendation to reduce the 2020 value to $4,541,000. This is removing the value of $660,000 from Zero Partridge, which is another roll number that I'm just in agreement. You'll see in the appellant's brief as well, or we're in agreement to remove the parcel that's down the street. Across the street, it's used as car storage. It was sold with the property. It was sold all together. It's we treat it as one economic unit on this property, but again, it doesn't automatically get taken off. So the file number, that value of vacant land that I'm asking to be removed from this one, it's not being appealed, so that value of $660,000 is fine to be taken off for the community. So going forward, that will be the value of defending, the total value of $4,541,000. Now let's go over the property. So this is a car dealership. You can see on our page 2 here, it's the Eastern Car Dealership. You can see exactly the layout of the property on the top of the second page. Long, narrow building, and it has some parking in the back. And then you can just sort of see at the top left of my actual subject photograph pictures on page 2, if you look here. This lot, I don't have a picture of it, but when I put it together, but there is a vacant lot right there, and that's the one that we're removing, $660,000 of value, just so you know where that lot is.
Okay.
I believe there's a better picture on you, so when we get there, yeah. So anyways, this the original body part portion of the building, where the main part was originally built, 1966 with some additions in 2002. We have 41,600 square feet of gross floor area, total leasable area of 41,600 square feet. If If you turn to our page 3, there's more pictures of the subject property. You can see it's a car dealership with a body shop down the middle, or like where they work on the vehicles. And then there's also included in there is like it's a collision center, and then they have car rentals as well. You can see the parking on page 4 where the cars are stored. And as you can see from the picture as well, as most, this dealership has a smaller kind of building to land ratio. There's not as much, it's not an ideal layout for a car dealership with open parking for the vehicles around, easy to show them off. You can see they've split it up from front to back, and they have the alternate parking across the street that I was talking about, just to point that out. Again, page 5, always comply with our customer information. There was a sale in 2013 and 14 for $6,450,000, but we did never receive a sales questionnaire, and I could not investigate whether this was an arm's length, what was included in the sale, or anything like that, so I did not put any weight on that sale on page 5. Page 6 is the actual income approach to how we value this VCD, so it's kind of split up between 4 different premises on page 6. You can see the different sizes. The main area of 30,400 square feet at the bottom. We have 2 mezz areas, one of 5,600 square feet and one of 1,600 square feet. So this mezz area is like open kind of second floor area used for, in this case, the 5,600 square feet, from my understanding, is used as storage. So we have a kind of a poor quality on that to represent a lower storage rent at that $4.98. And then the rest of the building we have as our actual vehicle, what we have as a VCD or a vehicle dealership. So the model creates rents based on that vehicle car dealership, and they range from $14 to $10, you can see there. But a total blended rate across this building is $10.27, if you want to look at it that way. So total rent of $10.27. And the rest of our parameters are all gathered from it being a vehicle car dealership. So VCD parameters are 2% for vacancy loss, 2% for expenses, $6 for shortfall, and a 7.8% capitalization rate. So our VCD's capitalization rates range based on size, location, based on where it's located, the size of it, and the age of it. So this one is generating a 7.8% cap rate from our model, and that's where you get that total value of $5,201,000. So page 7, I'm using the same rent comparables across all the vehicle car dealerships today. You'll see the way we do it is we use retail warehouse spaces as comparable rents for car dealerships. There are no car dealership leases in the city that I can find. So car dealerships are owner occupied, and the problem we run into when everything of the type of building is owner occupied, we have no net leases to compare it directly to. So we consider the closest comparable to a car dealership, and usually it's on a main street like Regent, Maine, Keniston, where Portage, Pembina, like those kind of busy streets. They also have, in our eyes, similar buildings or retail warehouse buildings, larger ceilings. It's the closest rents I could find to bring it in as comparable. So we have a range of 27 comparables across the city, all trying to be larger in size, of larger than 10,000, or a smallest one at 7,000 square feet, you can see, but they range up to, we're getting up to the 20, 30,000, one of them is even 47,000 square feet, so we try to use those larger size warehouses compared to car dealerships. And the build on our subject property was originally built in 1966, so this is an occasion where we have an older dealership. All the comparables on our VCD comparable list, you'll see here these 27, they're, the oldest one is 1973, but they range mostly from 2000 to 2013, so they're newer built, and in that case you're often getting higher rent. So this, our model for an older VCD like this, where it's located, is driving a $10 rent, I said, and you'll see my rents are ranging from, kind of that $14 to $18, $14 to $20 range for VCDs for the retail warehouses. So the closest ones on this list are actually comparable 9, 841 Lila, built in 2004. You have 10,000 square feet at $22. So again, retail rates are higher than our car dealership rates. And Comp 14 is that same complex at 841 Lila, 2004 built, comparable 14 at 1917. So these are, again, well above the actual subject property in this case, but because it's an old dealership, it's going to drive a lower rent based on the quality and age and location of it. So it's not a perfect comparable, I'm not trying to say it is, but it's the best ones we could find to compare to a larger building on a busier road and used for retail purposes. So we do have 4 auto-related comparables at the bottom, and that's comparables 28 to 31. We have a newer built building, 2010, on Main Street. There is contention, from my understanding, with this lease at the $19.50 or 20,000 square feet. There is a argument that apparently there might be basement space in this building that is unaccounted for in the lease, which would actually drop the lease rental rate from $19.50. But again, I'm not using this as a direct comparable in this case. And then we have 3 other auto-related where there are actually leases in place. So we had a Boyd auto body on Portage, 3570 Portage it was a lease signed in 14 for $13 square foot, and that's 9,000 of like actual vehicle service space, where the vehicle service portion of a building is comparable. And then we have 3680 Portage, which is a an auto gallery, 7,200 square feet, lease signed in 2017 for $12.50 a square foot. So those are you'll see the same rental comparables used throughout the day, so I won't go over that as in depth every time, but those are the comparables being used on page 7. We turn to page 8, we have the full income value summary, just showing that same thing as the first page, the first income lookup. Page 9 is our capitalization rate sheet. Again, for BCDs, they are all owner occupied. We do not have a separate chart for cap rates for BCDs for car dealerships. Our model is generating BCD rents based on similar types of building, large size warehouses, similar types of retail, and it's giving it its own cap rates based on that. I don't have a row to show you to compare to what's the 20th and 80th percentile in a case like this. I can just show you what the model is generating for a cap rate. And in this one, we're at 7.8%, so keep that in mind. Page 10 is just the Municipal Board Act. Municipal Act and the portions. Page 11 is just the actual mailer that was sent in. As you can see, it's fully owner occupied. And again, page 12 is just showing the lease of the premises, but there are no leases since it is owner occupied. And I just have an addenda going forward from page 13. That is my presentation. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you. You have questions?
The workup then on page 6, this is all generated from the model?
Yes, it's a model-driven income workup.
And have you ever inspected this property?
I've been in it, but I never inspected it.
Have you been in it?
Yes.
And in the time you've been in it, was this as a potential purchaser?
No, just threw it for work, but I wasn't like doing an inspection.
Okay, so have you never seen then the mezzanine?
I don't remember exactly what the mezzanine was. From the notes I have, it was used for storage.
For storage,
yes.
Right. And any chance you looked the underside of the deck of the mezzanine?
No, not from memory.
To determine if it was racking or whether it was constructed?
I don't know the details of it.
Okay. Now, I have a number of questions on your rents and some about information. I'm wondering, should we get that out of the way now? Because I'm not really objecting to your rents for this.
Yeah.
For this, because we're very, very close.
Sure.
Should I save them for when we're further apart?
Sure.
Or do them all now, Madam
I think
Chairperson? Your first major decision.
Do you have a position on that?
I am fine to wait till it's more relevant if it needs
I'm
to be
sorry,
used.
what?
I'm fine till if it's more relevant and we're farther apart in rent.
Okay.
More further? Okay.
Yeah, no, wait.
Then, those are my questions. Thank you.
Mr. Seaman.
Just a question. You've removed a lot from the assessment?
Pardon?
You said you've removed a lot from the assessment.
I've removed a lot,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, so that's not part of the assessment. So the assessment was at $5,201,000.
Yes.
And the current assessment is at $4,541,000.
Yes, $4,541,000. That's what I'm recommending.
Okay. That's the question. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, I guess there's no, the trouble with sales is that you're buying the business typically, right? Someone wanted the Chrysler dealership and then in your portfolio of dealerships and...
Yeah, in this case, I don't know the details of the sale, so I couldn't, again, I just couldn't put any weight on it. I can't present anything that shows that it's just a pure arm's length sale for the dealership.
Yeah, so it's difficult then to
Yes.
separate the business value from the...
If that's what's here, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. And the cap rate then was just based on industrial sort of cap rates?
I would imagine, I don't know for sure which sales are used directly to determine the BCD cap rates, but I'm assuming it's similar types of large buildings, like malls, retail stores, similar to that. but I don't know which sales, I don't know the list of which sales were used to determine that cap rate.
Yeah, because it'd be a combination. I mean, the dealership, the showroom part of it would be more akin to retail, but then the auto
Yeah.
body and the
More
repair
closer to
shop would
BSG,
be.
yes. These ones are odd, I don't know, I'll use the word odd, they're just, it's, we don't have a ton of evidence, or direct evidence for them.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I don't have any questions, so you want to go ahead?
Yes, thank you. Despite that, I do have some rebuttal information that I would like to rely on for this hearing and the others today. And I think may have all seen much of it in the past, but I found some new stuff on the weekend, so there's always new stuff. Are these sorted into piles? Like this? Okay. Okay, so like I said, some of it's been seen before, but and I won't go through it too much. I think they're all sorted in packages, 4 and 5. Thanks. What do I have? Oh, and I have extras for your files. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Kathy.
How many extras do I have? You gave me a lot of extras. The new information, and some of the information I'll refer to in my questioning later to do with rental rates, so I won't go over it now, but the new information that I discovered this weekend when I was doing some research on something totally different is that there's a series of municipal board orders from 2006, and they're all on car dealerships. And this is the first bundle here. 680 Pembina and 1717 Waverly, and the last one I think was 1700, another one on Waverly. At issue, there were several things at issue in these orders, but one of the things was that there was a disagreement on the management expense where the assessor argued for 3% and the owner's agent argued for 5%. All the orders, there's 3 here, specified 5%. So these post-dated the orders that the assessor refers to in their arguments. They, if you recall, and I was looking for it in their workup, they referred to some municipal board decisions that ranged in age from 1997 to 2004, and on the application of a management expense. These came after that date, and they all involve car dealerships. So the board in this case decided that 5% should be applied. And the decisions, on one side one could say, is this a different argument than presented to the boards in the past? Because today our board has been faced with a choice that the city wants 0 applied, and we're still saying 5%. And I say that these are quite pertinent because it's just a question of numbers. They're arguing for a lower management expense of 0%. 10 years ago they were looking for 3%, and we're still at 5%. And I think that the language in these orders and the review of it are pertinent to today. So there are 3 here, all auto dealers. That's the rebuttal I was going to ask you to look at for today. And do I pause for questions or carry on?
You do.
I have no questions.
Do you have no questions on that?
No.
Christina, do you have any questions on Wilson?
I'm just looking at the arguments and what they were arguing the management was for. The first one, they seem to just be arguing over the rate, but not stating exactly what it was for.
Well, the first one,
If you look at the page 6 on the first order, read a lower rate, but sometimes, but I'm just not seeing if they argue what should be included in the management rate.
well, on the first one on page 6, the city says they want a lower management expense because it's occupied by a single tenant.
Yeah.
And the board said 5% is going to be applied regardless, and not the 3. So what this was is an argument brought forward by the city at the time that if you have a single tenant, that their costs are lower than if it were a multi-tenant. The board disagreed and said 5%. Now, looking at the language, I don't see that there was an equity-based decision. It was simply their opinion, the appropriate rate for management expense is 5% after listening to the evidence. That there doesn't seem to merit a differential rate for one, and of course, it speaks to the fact that a management rate must be applied. Now, the second one was the second one. The second one was a totally different reason it was put in. My apologies. The second one on page 5.
Excuse me?
Page 5, having to do with the racking space, and that's what I'll be getting to in my argument. I asked the assessor a question if he had looked at the underside of it, whether it was actually a purpose-built floor or a racking system. So page 5 of order 06195 speaks to racking and says there is no rent for racking. Then the last order, the disagreement.
Page 10, I think.
Page 10? Yes, management expense. Yes, this one was closer to being an argument over which parameter gets applied. But again, the board is upholding the concept that a management expense is required evaluation. And the other information I passed out, which we've gone over several times, speaks to the required application of a management expense in IAAO, AIC, IVS, and Brokerage for Securities Commission, that this is not just an acceptable practice, but a required practice. So I'm saying that the board has concurred with that in these decisions.
Okay, thank you.
So my question goes back to that again, from the look of page 3 on the first order. We're talking about a vacancy allowance and a management expense of 3% that the city's asking for.
Right.
There's no, what we've been looking at is a difference with 2% and 5%, right? And the city has now gotten rid of the 5% but kept the 2%. So
Right.
does this 3% include the 2%?
Well, the past orders, the decisions on them on page 12 actually applies 5% plus 2%. And that's consistent with all the orders.
Okay.
So what we're talking
Exactly
about
my question,
is,
yeah.
back then the city wanted 3,
Understood.
town wanted 5, now they want 0.
Okay.
And we still want 5.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, though, for helping me. I forgot about that second order about the racking, because looking at the assessor's position, I'm happy that I think one of our issues has been resolved. So we're only left with 3 issues, basically, which is, should the rent be assigned to the storage in the subject property? And secondly, should there be 5% for management? And lastly, some differences in capitalization and minor differences in vacancy. Now, putting all of these in order of their importance. The first question is the space. We have 36,000 feet. I've inspected this property several times, and I apologize, I didn't provide you a picture of that space, but I do have just one picture to show you, and I'll show you the assessor first, see if there's any objections to this. And the two pictures are, this is the underside, and that's the mezzanine space, the storage space.
Yep.
Okay. So do you have any problems with me showing us? Okay. And I'll give that to the chair. The bottom two pictures. The one on the left is the underside of the mezzanine storage, and the one on the right is the upper deck.
You need a copy?
I do.
Can we email that copy to you right now?
Yes.
Here, can you go arrange with Bram to email that just?
Can I take a look at that?
Yep.
One time? Sorry.
I'll just go out of the room.
Madam Chair.
I'll make sure you get some. Sure.
This is,
Just make sure.
Yeah,
The pictures, yeah.
back side and the end.
underside.
Sorry,
Do you have any questions around that?
Oh, sorry.
Just from that picture there, one looks like storage, like part storage, right?
the parts,
That's where we
the
have,
parts
that's the
store.
5,600 square feet, right?
No, the parts store is below, so
Yeah.
that's part of the floor area.
Okay.
And so that's about a 7-foot ceiling there. And then the above space is what you have as your 600 feet of upper storage space.
And which picture is that?
That's the one with
Tires in there?
the boxes.
Yeah, there you go, okay. So
Yeah.
again, more storage.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the point being there, of course, is that it's not rentable space. For several reasons, it's storage space, so in order to be considered as rentable space, it has to meet a standard for a rentable space, and that is, of course, to have being fit for human occupancy. It's not, there's only light in there. There's no water, there's no electrical outlets, there's no finish there. It's below grade ceiling space. It does not clear 6 feet. I hit my head on it, and I'm not quite 6 feet, but I hit my head on it. So it's just below code for it. It's acceptable as storage space, but it's not rentable space. The last issue with it is in the underside of the deck, it's basically glorified racking. It's racking with a plywood deck.
Did you say below, what head is that where the tires are?
No, the tires are on the main floor.
That's the main floor?
Yeah, that's below this mezzanine space.
This is the mezzanine and this is underneath it.
Yes.
Okay.
So the mezzanine space has the boxes and it's 8 high.
It's
Right.
got the low.
The mezzanine is the low ceiling space.
Okay.
See, the bottom space barely meets code. So I think code is like 7 feet for ceiling height, so the bottom space meets that as a legal, for fit for occupancy. And therefore, that's where part storage is. But in order to get space on the building, well, the assessor is saying that wall height's 20 feet, so this is outside space is 20 feet, so that means inside space is 17 clear. Put in a foot for the space difference for the flooring, that gives you 16 feet. But it's not 16 feet. I've been in there. You have 7 feet clear on the bottom, slightly under 6 on the top.
Can I ask you when these pictures were taken?
I'm going to say 3 or 4 years ago. So, well, I didn't bring the full code, National Building Code book, but I think it's fairly reasonable to assume that it does not meet the code required for any use. That doesn't prohibit anybody from putting boxes up there, because that's a non-human occupancy classification. So there's no value to be attributed. And then I gave you the other board ruling about storage space, about that they don't consider it to be rentable space. There's another board ruling on the same issue having to do with Two Scurfield, which was the former Melrose plant, which I brought in under appeal 12 years ago, where it had an upper rack for the coffee roaster, and that was not deemed to be space because it's not meant for human occupancy. It was meant for in that case, the roasting plant, and it was obsolete. But the concept is, as an appraiser, I'm not allowed to use that space in my calculations for building space at all. A broker for real estate cannot use that space under any circumstances. A property manager cannot use that space. It's just not rentable space.
So the space under discussion here is the 5,600 square feet.
That's correct.
Correct.
And you'll note that without that, our figures on rent, on income are very, very similar to each other. And that's really our major difference. The vacancy that I've discussed here, we differ slightly from the assessment, and we've gone back to using actual vacancies. And this is a principle, and so we're using our vacancies from Johnson. And when I do appraisals in private practice on car dealerships, we tend to use a blended rate of industrial and retail to look at a vacancy rate, because that's what this really is. It's a blend between a showroom and a garage. So that would indicate 6.9% using that method. It's a small difference, and then of course I've already discussed the non-recoverables, which we've applied at 5%. And we're using an actual shortfall, which is probably not much different from what the assessor has. Again, not a major issue. We're willing to concede or agree to anything there. And then we have a difference on cap rate, and I'm not in total disagreement with the 7.8%. Around 8% would have been fine. That's what we ended up agreeing on the last cycle. I'd say today our major areas of disagreement have to do with the rentable area and the 5% fee. And so that saves me all my presentation on everything else. Thank you.
Okay. Do you have any questions, Mr. Assessor?
I think I'm good for questions on this one. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Seal?
Just a question, what was the leasable area here? What was the discussion with respect to the actual leasable area within the space? Is it the 41,600?
Well, no,
Less, so-
we're at 36,000. We've just subtracted the storage mezzanine.
Okay, so you subtracted it?
Yeah. So you'll note that we're at 396,000 on net income, and had the assessor not included it, he would have been about 399,800, which was fine. We'd be in agreement at that number.
That's all I have. Okay, sure.
Any questions?
On the vacancy again, how did you, okay, you say industrial 7.2 and retail 6.5. Where'd you get those numbers from?
From the Johnson report.
Johnson report?
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's a fairly detailed report, and we can look through retail in the neighborhood, and I'm scared to look what we applied. Sometimes one of my people fails to get the neighborhoods correct. This would be North Kildonan, right?
No, it's in West Kildonan.
Yeah.
Okay,
We
we're
just go on that side. It's probably close to Inkster, but I mean, I think Inkster would be still.
yeah, okay.
There's no like main area on here.
No, so we used, in this case, we used citywide numbers for 2017, 7.2 on industrial and 6.5 on retail, just citywide rates. Because there's no such thing as a vacancy, public vacancy rate on auto dealerships. This was something years and years ago when I started appraising that Patrick Hamilton insisted we do. Blends the rates.
And I have no further questions, so is there any desire to summarize?
No, this is quick.
Thank you?
I think we've explained our position.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to item number 3. Now, do we still have an issue with?
No, that's what I was talking to.
Okay.
This was an error put on here. It wasn't, it's not asking for non-compliance. I'm just doing the normal brief.
Okay. You can proceed.
Thank you. We are looking at roll number 1410058001066 Nairn. Again, this is just west of Panic Road. We have a 2020 value of $2,760,000. This is again another car dealership. As you can see on page 2, you see the Hyundai Focus, you can see the showroom, and that part. There's actually more pictures on page 3. You can see the parts and service area at the back. We have the original building built in 1963, addition in 2007, with a range of effective years from 2002 to 2007. We have a gross floor area for the building of 17,422 and a leasable area of 17,422. You can see the layout of the property on page 2. Page 3. No sales. Page 5, you can see our actual workup for this property. So again, our model for our car dealership for that 17,000 square feet, we're using, it's given $11.92 a square foot. I believe we are again, we're close on rent. I won't get too deep into the rent, we're very close. We're using our same standard parameter the last time, but again, based on location, size, and effective year built, this is drawing a capitalization rate of 7.15 instead of different than our 7.0 on the last one. And those all combined give you a total value of $2,760,000 for this car dealership. Page 6, you'll see the exact same comparables I went over last time. Page 7, income value. Page 8, we have again our capitalization rate sheet. I'm just not going to say the same stuff again. Page 10, the mailer sent in, we have it as owner occupied partially with a rent income, but I did do a company search and they are related parties, as are most rents reported from car dealerships. So again, I'm not taking that rent into account. And that is my presentation on this one. It's a quick and easy one. If you have any questions, let me know.
Page 5, model generator?
Yes, model.
Review inspection?
Have I? No, I've never been in this one.
No. In the model, this was applied as a vehicle dealership?
VCD, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does your model have any sort of area where you would consider the land on a site?
Like the land to building ratio, or like excess land?
That's correct, land to building ratio.
Yeah, like I don't know if the model does. No, I don't know.
But in this case, the actual land is 74,000 feet, so that's about 1.7 acres.
Yeah.
Would you not think that's rather small for a vehicle?
It's probably on the small size for a car dealership.
And you don't know if the model makes an adjustment for that?
I don't think it does. I don't know for sure though.
Now, are you aware that the current dealership are building a new site?
I am not aware of the current owner's buildings, what they're doing.
And the last cap rate you had was at 7.8, this one is 7.15. So is this all based on effective ages and issues like that?
From my understanding, market region, which is location, effective year built, and then size. So the differences are equating to that 7.15.
So if this were obsolete for its current usage, your model wouldn't pick that up then, would it?
Like your argument for the smaller size, our model is, I'm assuming it's not looking at the land to building ratio and making an adjustment for the cap.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Any questions?
No, not yet. Sorry. Thanks, Madam Chair.
I have no questions. Mr. Luca hasn't asked already.
My question has been answered, so go ahead with yours. Presentation.
Thank you. So the subject property is obsolete. The dealership was transferred from one party to another about 2 years ago, and with that transfer came the commitment to relocate as required by the manufacturer. So they're currently building a site I'm just trying to remember the name of the road. It's visible right off Lachemonier, near the Revenue Canada building, but behind where the retail development's occurring. So they have a larger piece of land with better visibility. Now, the issue in the automotive world, and I do a lot of work for them, is that they get told where to put their dealerships. And if they don't like it, the manufacturer awards a dealership to somebody who does like the location they want. That's just the way their system works. So they could stay at this site, but potentially then another dealership would be awarded somewhere else. So, but aside from that, it's just impractical, 1.7 acres, because after taking the building off, that leaves them about 55,000 square feet to display their vehicles. The current automobile dealership has a minimum of about 3 acres, and that's for a small brand, and larger brands go up to 10 acres now. Part of the changes that have occurred have to do with when GM went bankrupt, then Chrysler, multiple bankruptcies, and Ford's troubles. They used to consign their cars. So there'd be a large lot by Canada Packers, old site, where they park cars, and all the dealers could grab cars from there, and they were owned by the manufacturer, and when you grabbed them, they were yours. They stopped the practice. They simply said, if you want vehicles, you're buying them. Now they'll give them to them at 0 to low interest rates to carry the inventory, but they want them off their books. That's the key. So that's what's happened with all the dealerships with the push for getting more and more land. Now, we don't have a lot of large ones in today's hearings, but most of my clients with large dealerships now need at least 10 acres. So they get by with 5 acres prime site and a 5-acre off-site storage facility. And but this is, again, too small. It's obsolete. So the lease is a termination lease with the former owner. They bought the franchise from him, they signed a termination lease, and they're moving. And the site's being built right now. But they'll be up, well, they broke ground, I think they just late fall, so relocation is probably a year away, maybe longer, depending if they have any issues. So we're looking at it on the basis of an obsolete site. Now, the rent we've selected, we're being fairly consistent on our auto dealer rents, just for because it's a similar product, and we're using a rent of $11. It differs slightly from what the assessors has. I think we should be looking at this on alternate use site. This is the stretch of Nairn that's between Lachemonier and the bridge, so this isn't the good part. Is there a good part in Nairn? No, I guess it turns into region. But when I mean good, I don't mean like, you know, a social issue. I'm just saying that the retail wants to be East Region. They don't want to be on Nairn. And several dealerships have been there and moved out. So the alternate use, I know, for example, Salvation Army rents next door at $10 a foot, and that's the sort of building it's going to end up being. So we're using the same rent, the same vacancy, non-recoverables at 5%, and in this case, the cap, we think that the concern in this case is going to be once they vacate, will there be a period of vacancy, finding a new tenant? So the risk is on the table for the property owner to lure a potential tenant in it. We know he knows there's an impending vacancy coming. So he may get lucky, or he may have a vacant building for a while, or he may have to take a substandard rent. All of these lead to uncertainty in the marketplace and therefore a higher capitalization rate. So our value is $1,839,000. It's a decline from last year, because last year, when we took this in on appeal, there was term left on the site. That term included the entire length of the next tax cycle. So we knew that for the next 2 years, this tenant was going to be on the site and generating money and using the site. But during this cycle, the term is over. So it's going to be a decline. And incidentally, on that basis, I'm glad the assessor withdrew it, because I just found, this is how proactive we are. We knew my client had taken it over as a tenant, and we filled in the form for him as a tenant to submit to the assessment department, because we were afraid that the owner would not submit. So I'm glad you caught it. Paranoid on these potential penalty issues. That is my presentation, and as I said, there are some rents in here, and I guess the caution on these rents is, when you're looking at some of these automotive-related rents, is that it will descend to the lower end of the scale of lacking the badging of a new dealership. And they're on page 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Patrick?
Just very quickly, so you said East Regent you'd agree that East Region is a better location than?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That is all my questions.
Do you have any questions?
No, I don't, Madam Chair.
No questions on this.
And I have no questions either. Summary? No?
No, sir.
No?
No.
Okay, carry on to number 4 on the docket. This one would be then 950 Regent.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. We are looking at roll number 090102611700. This is 950 Regent Avenue West. This is just west of, west of Plessis. We have a 2020 value of $2,899,000. This was again another car dealership built in 2003, as you can see on page 2. We have 15,620 square feet, and we have a lease layer of 15,620 square feet. You can see on page 2 the exact layout of this dealership, where it is, the cars located around it. Again, a little bit better of a layout than our last subject property. See on page 3 just some more pictures showing the layout and where it is outside, and then there's also on the page 3 is the back exit out to Pandora Road. There was a sale in 2003. I believe that was the land sale, $576,000. Page 5 is our workup for this property. So we have a VCD built in 2003. The model is generating a VCD rent on that 15,000 square feet at $13.94. And we have a vacancy loss. Again, all of our standard parameters. The difference on this one, we have a 7.15% cap on this one. I believe that was, my memory is short today. I believe that was the same as the last one. But 7.15%. For a total value of $2,899,000. Again, I'm using the same rental comparables as I said. Again, I didn't point these out last time, but again, comparable on page 3. 1080 Narren is $14 a square foot for 14,000 square feet. Comp 19 is on Regent. It's a retail warehouse, 12,000 square feet at $17 a square foot. And Comp 26 is 1610 Regent Avenue. We have 23,000 square feet for $18.92. Those are kind of some close-by retail warehouses. We turn through page 7, 8, 9. Again, nothing new on those. Page 10 is just the mailer filled out again. Owner rented to an associated, so we have book rent in place, which I'm not taking into account. And that is all the information we received. Again, if you have any questions, please let me know. That's my presentation.
Any questions?
Yes, your valuation, was this again by the model?
Yes, model driven.
And have you inspected?
I've never been in this property.
So, on your square footage, where do you have a breakdown between plan area and mezzanine area?
I don't know.
Do you recall, or in the file, any notes that were given to the assessment department on the mezzanine space?
When I looked through this, I did not see anything, but I also didn't look for anything on the difference there.
Okay, so you're not aware that in past practice, the city assessor, and I guess today it continues, has used space on top of a compressor room in the garage?
I was unaware of that.
So I was just looking for a picture that was taken of it on an inspection with an assessor, and I can't find it in my file. Okay. In regard to your rents, just looking at your automotive rents on page 6.
Yes.
So the first one is an MPI facility.
Yes,
correct?
absolutely.
And so this was built to suit by the Crown Corporation? and
Absolutely.
Standards they imposed?
Yep.
Okay. You understand the concept of build-to-suit?
Yes.
That sometimes people pay for stuff that they want in there that
Absolutely.
isn't market? Okay. And did you see the specifications from MPI?
I've went through thorough questioning on this one in the past for
Yeah.
an appeal, and there is, again, from the best of my memory, there is some sort of basement space.
Okay.
I do not remember, again. I would ask comparable 28, put no weight on it.
Oh, okay. That's fair. Yeah, no, okay.
Save a lot of time.
And number 29, you're
Yes.
aware that that's an office building?
It's currently being converted into an office building. It was used as a Boyd auto body for the term of this lease and what was signed. I have it on appeal in a few weeks.
It was converted to a Boyd Auto, no, you're maybe confusing this building.
Maybe
It started its life as a consumer's distributing building?
Yes.
And then purchased by Fairlane Properties, Terry Smith, who converted it to an office. Have you inspected it?
We've had it inspected. Maybe I'm getting the building mixed up, but was it not a Boyd auto body for the past few
No,
years?
it's Boyd's office.
Oh, it's their office space. Okay.
Right.
They have the big bay door like
There's two bays of
yeah,
auto
2 bays.
detail
Okay, yeah,
right
for
now.
sure,
Right.
for sure.
So
yeah.
about
We have it
500
considered as vehicle service garage, but it's
But
part office.
It's mostly office.
Yes, mostly office. Sure,
Okay.
I'll agree with you.
And do you know how that rent ended up being decided?
No, I was not part of that lease.
Okay. You're not aware that it came by arbitration?
I was not part of the. I don't have any notes on arbitration or how the
Okay.
lease was actually done.
Comparable number 30, you're showing 7,200 square feet. Is there not a mezzanine in there of approximately 740 square feet?
I don't know. So the difference is 700 square feet, but not in disagreement with that.
No, I guess why I'm asking the question is if you have a lease that has a mixed amount of space, mezzanine and main floor,
Yep.
and you have a rate applied to it,
Yep.
then that's probably a fair lease to use to compare it to another building that also has mezzanine space and main floor space, correct?
Sure, you could use it as a comparable. I do not
It
disagree.
makes it a little more difficult if you only have main floor space to compare to, apply to one that has a mezzanine. doesn't it?
Sure, I would agree with you.
Okay. And then the last one, which is the Subaru dealership, of course, that was a termination lease, correct?
I am unaware of the.
It was a 3-year lease with buyout at the end, and it was entered into at the same time the dealership was transferred.
Okay. So they paid above. You were saying they paid above market lease.
I
at the
believe
time.
other assessors have admitted that it
For
was motivated.
Yes, absolutely. I would not disagree.
And the future plan for it, as a matter of fact, was to purchase the land and move the dealership.
Sure.
And, okay. Sorry, I just wanted to get those clarified. Thank you.
Fine.
Those are my questions.
Any questions?
Certainly, have you looked at this actual location?
Like where it is on Regent?
Physically, if you inspect.
No, I haven't
the
inspected
location.
this property.
You haven't.
No, I've never been in it.
You have.
No.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew.
The rent 1394, that's just
Model
because
driven. Yeah.
it's a newer facility?
I'm assuming 2003 build with where it's located. I guess being one Regent. I don't know if it's a different market area and that slightly raises it too, but those would be the two differentiating factors from something like our last one.
Okay, thank you.
And I have no further questions. Would you like to proceed?
Thank you. This is a Mitsubishi dealership. It was designed and built in 2003 for market conditions. At the time, Mitsubishi is a very small entity in the Canadian market, but probably one of the largest companies in the world. At one time, they were going to buy Brazil. I don't know if anyone ever heard that story. They made a bid to buy all the resources in Brazil. But they are a huge conglomerate. Unfortunately, they don't sell well, so the 15,000 square foot store is about where they meet an equilibrium, a small size store, and you'll note 2.8 acres, which would be an acceptable amount of space for a low volume dealer, as opposed to the previous one, the Hyundai dealership, which is a higher volume dealer on less land. So the benefit of this is that they had a little bit more forethought when they designed and built it. It's also part of a larger auto campus. And on our page 2, you can see that the subject property marked with a red dot is adjacent to the Chevrolet dealership next door, which is common ownership. So they do have, and then on that, and that's 7 acres next door, but there's also a body shop on that site. Now, that particular dealer, who again is the same owner we're not hearing today, they've outgrown their 7 acres as a Chevrolet dealership. So they actually now own 3 other pieces of land to store their cars on. That's a nature of the business. For Mitsubishi, it works. Alternate use makes it a little more difficult. So, you know, this would be, in the world of automobile retailing, this would be low volume dealers, so that would be Mitz, Subaru, just trying to think who else. Well, Alfa Romeo's trying to get into the market. It'd be that size of a dealership. The Japanese ones have far surpassed this. The other Japanese ones, way too small. Korean ones, way too small. And the US-based ones, too small. And the Germans, too small. They're all now at 50,000 feet on 5 acres. So, but this is also, if you recall, Winnipeg, how we've downsized the number of dealerships, which means the existing ones that are there tend to grow larger. So it's perfect for what it is, and it has nowhere to go. We're using the same rate of $11, and on this basis, there's a couple of leases that are of interest, and on page 3, incidentally, our first, on our list here, the first one, just disregard that one on Main Street. We prepare bulk tables for a lot of uses. The second one is 231 Oak Point. This was designed and built 14,000 feet as a motorcycle dealership. Now, it was a Harley-Davidson dealership, and then they closed the dealership, and it was vacant for about 2 years. There was a redesign of the doorways for the service area because, of course, it was designed to fit motorcycles. So there was some adaptation, and now it's a used car dealership at $7 a square foot. Now, it's superior building to the subject. It has a very nice mezzanine that was designed to be a clubhouse. It's got a really good showroom and an undersized service area. And it suffers from a worse location. So the $7 rent is something to bear in mind for a similar sized building. The next is 3570 Portage, and I have a different rent than the assessor does because I was involved in the arbitration on the renewal. I know it's $10 because that's how it ended up being decided. That's the net rent. It's a semi-gross lease where the owner pays a lot. I work for the owner, and I also work for Boyd at different times. And I know we disagreed on it, but I think the last time I had to look at this rent in another assessor's rebuttal, it hit bang on $10 a foot on the income and expense statements. The third rent I have is 3680 Portage, which the assessor has at $12.50. Here's the real truth of this matter. The rent is $90,000 a year. We both agree on that. We put 7,200 as plan area, but there is, to my knowledge, and it was on the appeal for today, and that was withdrawn for a totally different reason. I don't work for the owner. I was working for a potential tenant who's no longer there, so our appeal was withdrawn. So there is a mezzanine. The lease speaks to the plan area only. The area is 7,950 feet. That's how I get $11.32. The land area on this is a touch smaller. It's 50,000 square feet, but it was designed as a multi-unit facility where at one point in time there were these two small 7,200 square foot auto dealerships side by side, and then Toyota was right beside them, and it being a bigger dealership. And so then over time, one of the buildings was spun off, and now the old Toyota was then sold, but this one is owned by the former Toyota dealer as a used car site. So the 1132 is somewhat representative of an economy of scale, similar location qualities, but it's half the size. Would drive the rent up a bit, with less land, drive the rent down, so we're getting $11. The last one I'm going to speak to and put any reliance on is 2554 Portage. This was built in 1963 as a GM dealership, and since then it was sold, and the land was subdivided into 3 separate parcels. Sorry, it was not subdivided, it was allocated in the lease to 3 separate parcels. One was for parking for the hotel, the other was for part source pad site, and the last remained where Mercedes moved in. Now, their allocation was approximately 50,000 square feet, and they had 22,000 square feet of building. And of that, that includes the mezzanine in there, which is I think around 6,000 square feet in the mezzanine. The actual lease this is dated July 15, was $7.56. It subsequently moved to $8.19, I believe, on a step up. But the key here is that in July of 2015, the lease in place had run 15 years, and it had another 5 years to go plus 2 more options. And the rates were all specified in the option. So I'm not relying on the old lease written in 1999, I'm relying on the sublease. So after Mercedes vacated and they moved to their new site in southwest Winnipeg, they sublet the space to Birchwood. Ironic in that Birchwood used to own it, but it was for their one of their used car facilities. So it is a pure market transaction. They came to me for advice and said, what should we sublet for? And I gave them a higher number than that. But that's all they could get on the marketplace. They exposed it to the market, and they tried it, and this is what they settled for. So it was a renegotiated sublease at pure market value. And so those leases indicate a range of automotive related. Now the rest of these that I've listed here, 3636 Portage was old, and this was a deal that Ford was renting to the dealer, and subsequently purchased out. 983 Wall is not for us to worry about today. 1700 Waverly is mislabeled. It's actually 1717 Waverly, and it's McNaught. And I've heard 2 different rents on this site. One's 11, one's a bit higher. So I've determined it's not that reliable. It's just put in there for information. It was a build-to-suit. 2150 McPhillips was obtained from the city. It was a 2-year deal, and it was written as 3, ended up being a 2-year deal for Nissan's use of this site, which is no longer there. And 1370 Dougal, which you're going to hear later today, so I'll save my speech for that one for later, but it's a real rent at $8. Inferior location, but a lot of land. Inferior building, a lot of land. And the rest of these are more auto body related, so this is in cases where an automobile dealership has a significant amount of shop space versus showroom space, we would be looking at a lower rate. In this case, it's just, there's no auto body related with this. Now, last note on the dimensions of the site. I went out and measured this site, because we had a disagreement on it, and an actual measurement on it was on the upper space was 1,589 square feet of mezzanine space. I went up and measured it by hand. And what it consists of was an office, a meeting room, and a kitchen area, and a restroom. And now the balance of the space, I believe the assessor is attributing to, in the shop, there's a compressor room, and on top of the compressor room, there's an open storage area, which again is not rentable square footage. We always have this agreement. I figured after handling this case for the last 15 years, we'd get it sorted out, but I guess not. So I have my measurement numbers in here somewhere, and I was just digging through for them. But we did measure it at the time, so it's not a major issue, but we do want to try to show the exact numbers if we can. Thank you, that's my presentation.
Any questions?
No questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Sorry, I have no questions. I'm sure.
I have no questions.
And I have no questions.
Can I have just a few minutes?
Of course. Thank you. Okay, I'll call this session back to order. We are dealing with item number 5, I believe, 1424 Regent Avenue.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay,
We're looking at roll number 0901042650.
correct.
This is 1424 Regent Avenue West. This is right across from the Regent Casino there on Regent. We have a 2020 value of $4,651,000. This is a dealership that was originally built in 1988 with an addition in 2014. We have an overall effective year on this building of 2,000. This is a gross floor area of 26,560 square feet and the same leasable area. You can again see exactly where this is on page 2. You can see the layout of the property, how it sets up its cars outside. You can see page 2 at the bottom of the street view. And page 3 is just showing more street views to get a better idea of the property. No sales on page 4. Page 5 is very similar to our last property. We have 26,000 square feet, 26,563 square feet at $13.60. This is all model generated. Standard parameters down, exactly the same with the same cap rate of 7.15%. This gives us the total value of $4,651,000. Page 6 are my rent comparables, exactly the same as before for this last property. Going through, nothing different on this one except page 10 we have the mailer filled out in this same way. We have a net income, but again, this is a owner occupied or rented to an associated company. It says so. We're not taking into account the book rent. And going all through this, there's nothing new on this one. If you have any questions, please let me know. That's my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, just same questions of model
Yes.
and inspected.
No.
Okay. And all the other things the rents that you used and support,
Everything's the same as
the
last.
same as last time. And so just again, out of curiosity, I know you discussed it before, but your supporting rents are significantly higher, with the exception of 2,
Yes.
than actually applied to the subject.
Yes.
The reason being, what is
Is that the retail warehouse rents I have?
Yeah.
The retail warehouse rents, all built after 2000, are higher than the car dealership that our model is giving, and I'm going to assume our model is giving a car dealership rent lower than a standalone mall. It's a different type of retail space, but it's it's comparable in the closest comparable I could find, if that makes sense. That's why they're higher.
And in terms of capitalization rates, your assessment department doesn't produce a special rate for auto dealers on page 8.
No.
There's nothing, no separate category for it. It's plucked out of, what is it, retail?
If I knew, I'd tell you exactly how it came up. I don't know the exact sales that are used to determine the cap rate, but as you can see today, our range is about from 7.15 to 7.8. That's what they've been for these type of car dealerships. So that's model generated.
Yeah, so why I'm asking that is because we have a property that was pretty much designed and built as an auto dealer, like many of these were, correct?
Yes.
So when auto dealers change the nature of their marketing, as they have several times in my memory, we leave behind some obsolete properties, do we not?
Yes.
And that the cap rate doesn't reflect the concern for that built-in obsolescence for a purpose-built facility?
No, it's being modeled, the cap rate being modeled as a dealership. It's not.
Thank you, those are my questions.
Do you have any questions, Mr. Freeland?
I don't, Madam Chair.
No questions.
And I have no questions, if you'd like to proceed.
Thank you. Now, in this case, you heard me disagree with the assessor twice on measurements, and I'm not disagreeing with him this time. This is our mistake. And this was Jan Trosham's last appeal before she retired, and she made sure that she got the square footage right, and we were wrong. And our files weren't updated, but I do have my notes here that we agreed with 26,563. She gave it to me, we went down, we inspected, and we measured. And it's just important to get it right. So I have some reworked numbers, and we're using the same rental rate at $11. By the same rents we looked at. And the point we're making here is that we do have buildings that are somewhat built to suit. And think of the alternate uses for an automobile dealership, and think of one that's really worked out. What I'm saying here is when they're done with their building, is it still a good use or does it suffer from obsolescence? And think of all the dealerships that we've seen in our market, and the biggest glaring example is 750 Pembina, the old Ford dealership, which is pretty much just a rundown sporting shop. It's got land value, and that's it. Think of the other dealerships that have come and gone. If they're the right size, maybe a used car dealer at a lower rate, rental rate, or you get bulldozed. Because it's not really lending itself to an alternate use with the design that it has. It's not, either a building's pure retail warehouse or it's all retail, but it's not this sort of blend that's designed to cars. So the most significant asset of any of these is the land itself. The building itself is considered more obsolete. So, which is why we've been sticking for this appeal cycle pretty close to an $11 rent, because that's supported by actual rents in the marketplace for this type of property. We can look at alternate uses, but then you have to find an alternate obsolete use or something of the sort. And that's what guided our thinking on the $11. Our potential income is $292,193. Because we're using all 26,563 square feet. I haven't changed the vacancy rate, so after the vacancy rate, our subtotal is now 272,032. Our non-recoverables are at 5%. Our structural reserve, and I haven't mentioned this yet, instead of using 2% as the city suggests, I think it's important that we start breaking these down into what they're really for. And the material I handed out to you shows that even the assessment department themselves recognize that there's a difference between the old 2% and 5%, and that the 2% was always an allowance for structural reserve, and the 5% was for non-recoverables. It's always the way it's been. And people put different names on them. So in this case, I'm just trying to let's just go back to the right words and stop using euphemisms. We're going to use structural reserve. I'm not going to use other. And the way a structural reserve is done is putting money aside for things that need to be replaced. Roof is the most common issue, and we're using 25 cents a foot. And which is an allowance in this case of $6,641. Now, this roof to replace would probably cost about $400,000, so that's not putting away a lot for it, but most times roofs just get repaired. You were using what we estimate to be the actual shortfall, which is not much different from what the assessor has, but the difference, the big difference is the tax load on these facilities, because they are being, the tax alone on this is $372 a square foot. So that's not, when the place is empty and vacant, that can't be disregarded. So our NOI is now $237,182. And in keeping with our concern for future use, alternate use, there's a line I thought of many years ago, 15 years ago, when I was appealing the Point West dealership. And like I said, today it's a nice, all Point West dealerships, today it's a nice, bright, shiny showroom with all these bright, shiny vehicles. But you can't think about that. What you have to think about is, what's the real estate potential? Take the cars away. What is going to happen with this piece of real estate? And that's the concern for the obsolescence, the built-in obsolescence of built-to-suit buildings. So we used 8.25%, which incidentally was the same number that was last year on a decision, was at 8.25%. And our value is $2,874,933. 2,874,933 rounded to $2,875,000. I know that's slightly below last year's decision, and last year's decision, well, we had our square footage wrong, and you think my work up there was messy. When I had to fix it, this is what I had to try to argue with the board. It was a real mess, and we had to make a lot of changes. So I know we gave the board some problems in terms of the calculations, but as we are this year as well. But like I said, our NOI, $11 on the whole site. I agree with the square footage. Some individualized parameters. We're not, until we resolve this management expense issue, as they call it, and non-recoverables as I call it, I think we're bound and determined to stick with actual appraisal practices. The concept of the 5% and the 2%, for those of us who have been around a long time, it was a truce. You saw those orders that I handed out? That was one of the battles in the fight on the non-recoverables. And the truce, which has been in place for well over 10 years, was let's accept 5%, let's accept 2%, let's accept these, generally the vacancies and the shortfall rates, because these are minor issues, and we have. But the truce is over. So we're going back to market. And that's why my NOI is $237,182 and capped at 8.25%. If I had used the city parameters, including non-recoverables at 5%, it's likely the calculation would have worked out to about $3,193,000, as shown from last year's assessment. And I'm not doing this to posture. It's simply a fight that is still going on, and I think we're sticking with our principles. Thank you very much.
Do you have questions?
I have no new questions.
Do you have any questions?
I do. So let's just go back. Page 1, presentation here, you have a market value of $230,735. That's true still?
Sorry, I missed.
Sorry, on page 1,
right,
you have a market value for the property of $2,230,000.
No, I'm changing that to $2,875,000 to account for we failed to carry forward the space.
The space?
Yeah, it's 26,563, as the assessor pointed out. I guess, and no one changed our template on this from the last time.
Sure. Okay, that's all the questions I have, Madam Chair.
No questions? And I have no questions. And we will move on to our final item on our docket, 1370 Dugald Road. Are you ready, Professor?
Thank you. Okay, we're looking at 1372 roll number 0609346270. This is just east of La Jamodier. We are at the 2020 assessment at $2,569,000. We have again piece-work built building, originally 1974, addition in 2003. Total effective years on this building is 1979. You can see we have a gross floor area of 20,652 square feet. 20,652 square feet, and the leasable area of 20,652 square feet. You can see on page 2 where this is. So this is on Dugald Road. Again, it's RV center trailers. We still have it as a vehicle, a car dealership title. So you can see on page 4, there is 20,000 square feet, 20,652 square feet at $9.58. We have our standard parameters all the way down and our overall capitalization rate of 7.3% on this property, and that works out to the total value of $2,569,000. Again, you can see on page 2 the picture of the property that's being assessed around the purple line there. There is land beside it that is currently being rented from the owner of that property, but you can see the the property we're assessing in the building on at the top left of that page 2 there. Again, so page 5, I just put together some separate comparables for this one. I put more of 3 larger vehicle service garages are my 3 comparables because this is not a standard car dealership, on a major route. It's on Dugald Road. It's, a little more of an industrial setting. I just thought I should look up some similar comparables in that area just to see if, the model's kind of on the mark. We have the first comparable is 1870 King Road. This is a large King's truck and trailer. It's $8.15 a square foot for 17,000 square feet. It's built in 1977 and 5-year term signed in 2014. 1777 Brookside Boulevard is a 24,000 square foot BSG. This is a Cal Tire. It has a $12 square foot rent on it, $12.72. And we have another Cal Tire comparable 3, 140 Warman Road, BSG built in 1979. It's a recently signed in 2018, 5-year lease for $9.27. And then I just put together 5 flex warehouse and storage warehouse in the actual Dugald St. P industrial area out there, and the rents range from $8 to $10.95 for size ranging in 6,000 square foot building up to a 15,000 square foot building, 32,000 square foot building. So the average of my comparable is $9.55. Our model is generating a $9.58 rate on this for VCD, and I'm just checking that against some similar types of buildings. Again, nothing different on the next pages as we've went over this VCD information before. The only thing I will note is that the square footage we're using is 20,652 square feet. And I believe this was one that was recently agreed on at Municipal Board Case Management. I saw a note on that, at 20,600.
Oh, then it was Municipal Board, then it was...
Case Management for 2014.
Oh.
But we are using, there's been a square foot.
No, yeah, I think it was just a number we agreed to.
Okay. Well, that's what we've adjusted our square footage going forward. Like that's what our square footage is at, and then the actual reported on page 9 is 21,475. So I didn't adjust to what was actually being reported. I just was going with that 20,652. That's the square footage we have on file, but the owner is reporting 21,475. Again, I think there is, I won't say an argument, but this rent on page 10, so this is GNR Travel Center Limited. You have the leased area at 15,601 they're paying in rent. That works out to $8.09 a square foot. I believe, from my understanding in the notes on this property, owner, there is a relationship. The owner, I don't know if it's a father-daughter from the owner to the tenant, but there is I don't believe it's a true arm's length lease, and maybe Mr. Dufeld will, elaborate on it for me.
It's my arm.
Yeah. So again, the $8.03 is not, not super far. It's not a huge difference from our $9.58, but we are at $9.58, and there is some sort of lease in place for $8.03. Whether that's arm's length, I'm not convinced. But for my presentation, that's everything. If you have any questions, please let me know.
So this was model again?
Model driven, yes.
Yeah, and have you been out to see the place?
I've never been to this place, no.
And page 5, you selected these comparables?
Yeah, these comparables.
And just a quick question on the 2 Cal tires.
Yes.
Do they have basements?
I don't know.
Okay, because everyone I've been in has a basement for tire storage, so I was just wondering. Okay. And last question. Obviously, you've got some mezzanine space in here, or some upper level space, correct?
Yes.
Now, your measurement, your wall height on this is between 14 and 16 feet,
Yes.
which I know to be external measurements, because that's the way the city does them,
Okay.
right? So how do you get an extra floor in there? How do you squeeze 2 floors in a building that size?
I'm assuming you have some mezz space.
Okay, well, do you have an outside picture?
I believe so. Page 2.
Right. Do you have the one that shows where the windows are?
No, I don't.
I'll ask, because you can see them on my picture on page 2. That on the building, there's a small window on the side of the building where the GNR sign is, the red one. See those 2 small windows there?
Yeah.
So that's on the downward curve. So that would be in the lower part of the building, so I'm just wondering if you factored into any quality issues because of the very, very low ceiling height.
I haven't, no.
Okay. Thank you, those are my questions.
Any questions?
No, Madam Chair.
Sorry.
Okay, so they sell recreational vehicles here,
From my understanding, yes.
so you're not really treating it any different than an auto dealership.
No, not for characteristic purposes.
Okay, but do they have the sort of auto body and service areas that you would find in the...
I'm unaware of what happens in the back of that building. I don't know.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could.
Go ahead.
Was this a former auto dealership or former auto sales location?
I don't know its whole history. I think they've been selling RVs there for quite a while, but I don't know the whole history.
Since at least 1978.
Yeah.
Because we rented a trailer there when on our honeymoon.
Don't lie.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
I have no further questions. If you'd like to proceed.
Thank you. I noticed a mistake here. I don't prepare these, but I know all of these. So now it's what the assessor's saying about the square footage is not so much that there was an agreement on it, because the upper level mezzanine space is on the building is peaked, right? So on the low side of the peak, there's an office. And I've been in the office, and it's like this, and so at this end it's like 5 feet, and this end it's about 6.5 feet. So but it was built in when the building was up, so it's not considered rentable space. But the mistake we made is that we don't consider it rentable space, but that doesn't change the amount of cash rent that's actually being paid. and we agree that it is 187,219. The assessor has provided their statement at 187,219. It is considered to be a market value lease. The story behind it is that there was a father with 3 daughters, and time came to split up the assets and of it, and 2 of the daughters were married to the 2 operators of GNR, and the 3rd daughter was married to a lawyer, and Antoine Halco. And they, in order to split up the assets, what was decided is that the father's company was going to keep the building and rent it at a market rent to the 2 sons, and wanted to be fair to 2 son-in-laws, to be fair to the 3rd daughter, because she would then get a piece of the income as with the rest of them. So they hired somebody to arbitrate and decide and set the rent. That was me. So I went in and I worked for all of them, and it was quite an interesting experience. And I expected Antoine to give me a lot of objections, but he was very pleasant to work with. And I set the rent as a market rent. That's why we're relying on it all the time, because it's true that the participants in there were related, but when the participants go out of their way to make it a market rent by hiring a professional, then they meet those the definitions. So the actual rent is 187,219, and I've changed all my numbers, because the mistake made is that the person who wrote this up, I've told him that the rent was 809, but he applied it to the plan area. It really doesn't matter what the square footage is. It's the cash. We have a cash number. And the mistake is that even if we say that the rentable area should be 19,544, it doesn't change the rent. It's 187,219, period. So after changing all the numbers, my NOI increases to 151,875.
875?
151,875. And we're capping that. I was just looking to see what our previous, last year we had a recommendation, and previous year recommendation. Anyway, I was just going to use an 8% cap rate, and the reasons for it being a little more aggressive than the last 2 is because it does have an alternate use. It's an industrial building, and it's got good land. So that number is 1898,438, 1898,438, rounded to 1898. And we had some calculations for the excess land, and again, the person who wrote this up isn't familiar with the situation. When we do our workups, we make sure that when there's extra lots that we put them in there, because it's easier to take them out than put them in. And we mentioned as the assessor that we weren't wanting the extra lots. There are 2 extra lots associated with this land, and they're rented lots. Terracon owns both of them. There's a rearage lot and a frontage lot. But we're not relying on that, because in and by itself it possesses enough land to do a normal job. It just happens to be that they sell RVs. That takes up far more land. So we're not subtracting it. So that's our number, 1898, which is a slight increase over last year, and I think reasonable. And it is the actual paid rent. And other than that, as an industrial property, which is the alternate use, it's not going to generate an $8 rent. It's a $5 or $6 rent, because it's low ceiling, and it's got a good location, low ceiling, and good land. So those are the 3 variables that we look at. Incidentally, this is, the last time I talked to them, the only MPI accredited RV body shop in the city, in which they do a lot of fiberglass repair. I don't know if that's changed from the last time I met them, but So next time you drive your RV into a tree, whoop, the camera's on. Whoop.
I have to note that he's roasting their colleague.
That was my presentation. Thank you.
Any questions?
I have no questions, but I've
Questions? Do you see one?
Just wanted to understand, I think it referenced that there was more than one parcel of land here.
Yes, there are 3 parcels, but we're not, we don't care about the other parcels because they're extraneous to a normal market use.
Okay.
They actually operate a distinct business on the second of the parcels, which is slightly different from, it's a storage compound. So for parking your trailer for the season, and it's distinct from the GNR. The bulk of it on there, it's kind of all blends in. It's a whole bunch of different uses, but having a different usage, like they could operate the trailer center without it, and you'd see the map on the assessor's got it. We've got the same one. You see the main parcel has got that, and the one beside it, yeah, there are some new vehicles on it, but their rental vehicle, their storage vehicles are in here because it's compounded, but so then they move their new vehicles over here, or their new trailers over here. So the point is that to operate the trailer dealership, they can make do with their current acreage. It's an extraneous business.
Can I just ask one question quick?
Yes.
Yeah, just for clarification. So we can agree that the lot to the right and the lot to the left, they're different owners, right? It's land
Oh, no,
being rented.
it's different ownership.
Yeah, like
yes.
in our first appeal today, like I just want to
Yeah.
be clear, I removed the assessment of a lot because it was the same owner using that land. This is a different owner, I just want to be clear.
No,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't think the same way. I'm thinking
For sure.
more of the economic unit.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
If you need an extra lot, I don't care who owns it, in order
sure.
to justify
Yeah.
the rent,
For
then
sure.
you
I
subtract
just wanted
it.
to clarify the situation.
But I think they could justify the rent without an extra lot.
Yes, okay, thank you.
So we're not subtracting it.
No, not subtracting.
We're not
Not
subtracting
subtracting.
anything. Okay.
Is there mechanical repair operation in there?
No, it's body and minor mechanical. They're not doing, I'm just trying to remember now, when I was in there. Like, I think they're doing like oil change style work and maybe alignment style work, but we're not getting past that. Because like the chassis would go to automotive based, just
Yeah, all right.
All right.
Is there a showroom in there? Or do you
Yeah,
have everything?
yeah. There's a showroom up front, and it's got some trailers. Yeah, it's a fairly large size showroom, and then the mezzanine space I mentioned overlooks it. It's just a little sort of like a treehouse fort on the side, and there's just some parts, like aftermarket parts, that they'll sell to add on to customize your trailer. There's a few of that, like extra lights and things like that. I think they do hitches, right? They do hitches as well. But I'm wondering, do they send their hitch work over to Metro? Because that involves welding. I don't think they're doing welding.
And would they install like fifth wheels in pickup trucks?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they do that.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
I have no further questions, and the hearing is now closed. Oh, I'm sorry. I will retract that. Do you have any wish for a summary?
No,
Now we're closed.